notice about it. And welcome everybody. Today is Monday, the 8th of December 2025. You joined the Kubeflow bi-weekly Model Registry meeting. These working group meetings adheres to the code of conduct, specifically the CNCF code of conduct, like any Kubeflow working group meetings and any Kubeflow meetings. The meetings are being recorded and they will be shared on a playlist that is that one that you see. What you're seeing on the screen right now is the meeting agenda. So anybody is free to propose any item to the agenda. These are linked to the Google Calendar invite, so you can find it there. So we have a few items. Before we get started, is there anybody new that would like to introduce themselves to the community?
Hello everyone. I am Divya. I'm pretty new to Kubeflow. I just joined the Slack today. I have been contributing around Kubernetes, Minikube, etc. But Kubeflow is pretty new to me. I've been exploring it, and now I will be like to contribute. So this is a model registry regarding meeting, right? So
Correct.
what? So what majorly do you guys focus on? Uh, like I just attended the release meet before this, so yeah, I'm just exploring
Absolutely.
what's happening around.
Absolutely. So welcome, Divi. So this working group is bi-weekly meetings that we hold for the model registry component. So if you go to, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the website of kubeflow.org, you can see that
Yes, I
there
have.
are, yeah, so there are a few sort of like a sub components that we call Kubeflow projects, and the model registry is one of them. So every working group have their own bi-weekly usual meeting, and this
Okay.
is where we discuss evolutions or feature of the model registry specifically. For example, our repository is a Kubeflow model registry, is this one. So we typically discuss things that are in milestones that are to be meant to be achieved for the next roadmap. So for example, here we will need to do some things that are related somehow to the items here, but specifically to model registry. If you are interested in Kubeflow in general, I can suggest you to join as well the Tuesday meetings that it is happening. So you can go here to contribute. If you go to community, you can see all the Slack channels and all the Kubeflow community meetings that are available. And the most important, I would say, is the community call. That happens every Tuesday. It is a weekly call, and there we share about anything that is common across Kubeflow. So
Okay.
my
Thanks.
suggestion
This
is
was
that
super
simply,
useful, helpful.
yeah, absolutely. And thank you indeed for joining. Please feel free to hang around as we discuss the items. So we more than happy. We have sort of like a very small as well items that people can contribute to model registry. So in case that anything interests you of what we will be discussing, we are more than happy to have individual contributors joining.
Sure. Anything that seems interesting or doable, I would definitely like to be part.
Absolutely. Thank you so much and welcome again.
Thanks.
All I don't see any other. Okay, so let's move to the agenda item. So for the CNCF graduation, I was running earlier on through the issue. We moved up a couple of places. So yes, good news means that the talk of CNCF is going back to resuming that one. So hopefully, I guess we will reach around the third place and so on. It will we will start to hear some news about. So that's what I wanted to share about it. For the CAP to rename this project from Kubeflow Model Registry to Kubeflow Hub, the CAP is now subject to approval of the KSC. So we will follow that one up on Tuesday, tomorrow, during the community call. Is there any questions for these 2 points? Or otherwise, I think that Paul, you added some items here about performance artifact endpoints. So if you want to take it over.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me share my screen. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, we can see a terminal.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to talk about a new endpoint that we added to Model Catalog recently. It is the performance artifacts endpoint. If you're familiar with the API, like we already have this existing artifacts endpoint, and the performance artifacts endpoint is very, very similar. It returns a lot of the same data. The main difference is that it includes a default filter for limiting things to metrics artifacts, and then specifically performance metrics artifacts. So you'll never get anything other than a performance metric artifact back from it. But I just wanted to kind of.
If I may suggest, is there any way to possibly make the font a little bit bigger? During the recording, it will be recorded in a high quality, but it's like.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I should have remembered to do this beforehand. I'm sorry. Yeah, and whoever's just watching the recording can just skip ahead while I remember how to change my font size. There it is. There we go. Can everybody see that?
It's much more readable now. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this endpoint, like I said, it's basically the same format. It takes a lot of the same parameters, but I wanted to specifically talk about a couple of the parameters that are unique to this endpoint that they're really not obvious at first glance, but I kind of wanted to walk through the use case for them. So this is our response. Like you can see, I've run this through JQ just to get us a couple of things that we're actually interested in. So this endpoint only really makes a lot of sense if you have a whole lot of performance metrics that are coming back. So like in this case, I've got, for this model, like I have benchmark data where this was run against a machine with 4 H100 GPUs. And that was doing 1 request per second, and we got back a latency value of 39 milliseconds. So if you like really dig into these numbers, you'll notice that on the next record here, like we're doing 2 requests per second, but our latency value didn't really change that much. Like any other benchmark, you would expect as you do more requests per second, your latency should increase, and it kind of does, but it doesn't change very much here. So one of the arguments that this endpoint has is a target RPS, which is like a request per second target that we're trying to hit. Like say our application needs to be able to handle 20 requests per second. So we can specify that here, and then it will scale up these numbers. If I can, right. It will scale up these numbers and add 2 new fields to the response that it generates. One is called replicas, stick that in there, and then total requests per second. So if we look at this again, we've got what it would take to scale up our big beefy machine here with 4 H100s to handle 20 requests per second. So the total requests per second is 20. You see, if we want to, so we have a couple options to get there. In fact, all these are theoretically good options to get us to 20 requests per second. Like we can have a machine with, I'm sorry, we can have 20 machines with 4 H100 GPUs if you just like burning cache, I guess. I don't know. But you can see that we really don't get, our latency is not changing very much for all those extra GPUs. Like we're having 3 more milliseconds of latency with 16 GPUs versus 80. So ideally we just wouldn't even return these rows because they're just not realistic. Like they're not helping anybody. And then we've got similar situations all the way down. Like if you've got on our with the two H100 machines, like these two rows are almost identical, but we have 7 replicas on this one, so like 7 machines versus 5 machines, and we're not really improving the performance enough to justify the extra cost. So, and that's why this endpoint also has a recommendations flag, which will filter this down to something a little more reasonable. So like you see, we've lost our, was like up here, we had configurations with 80 H100s and then 40 H100s that were basically the same latency as this one here. So like we've gotten rid of those, and we're just going with one still very expensive set of machines here with 16 H100 GPUs. But like if you know your kind of your performance target, like if you've got a hard requirement to do 20 requests per second with no more than 80 milliseconds of latency on your chosen metric, like you need to look at the options above that one, and then it'll filter it down to the ones that are actually meaningful. You're still going to be spending a lot of money on GPUs, but at least you're not spending excessive amounts for what you're trying to do. So hopefully that makes sense. It's not the most obvious feature, I'm afraid, but I think it's really useful and it's worth highlighting. So there's that. Anybody have any questions? All righty. Well, Matteo, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Paul. I think actually, thank you for walking through that demo. Let me also in the meantime share the screen of the notes. Thank you for walking through the demo and showing it step by step. Let me also try to summarize it just to make sure that everything is in check. So say that a company has evaluated their specific models that they wanted to provide to the different teams or organization unit within the company. So luckily they have run this performance test on several machines, and they have sort of like, I'm going to oversimplify, but sort of like they are going to use this benchmark to say, hey, the model behaves in certain ways depending, of course, on the hardware that you may use. Then there will be a team that will say, actually, we care about a specific target metric, so that this endpoint can give you, okay, I give you the measure for the specific target metric, and then sort of like actually you have that recommended flag that sort of like will enter only the meaningful hardware that you need. It's like, as you said, it's like you don't need to sort of like over commit for a machine that is way too powerful, that what actually you need to target that performance metric that you wanted to be subject of. So in a way, maybe it's like, I don't know, a company has decided to align or fine-tune a foundation model to use it in their own RAG and to give it to the several units inside the company. So the company, the several units, if they want to deploy this model, they will ask, okay, but which hardware do I need? And then for this benchmark can be done by who has fine-tuned the model as well. So they can be stored in the model registry, in the model catalog. So that in this way they can say, oh, it's like we need to serve, I don't know, maybe only the, I would say, a branch of the company which is outshore, and therefore is like a relatively small. So they will optimize for a performance which is relatively small, and you will get the minimum hardware requirement to hit that metrics. For instead, I don't know, the HR of the company that actually requires the model to be served really, really fast to perform it. Then in this way, they can actually filter for the target metric. It will be much higher, and this will give them the best. They will show, it will show, if you don't have the recommended flag, all the relevant metrics that will to say, hey, this will work with 4, 8, 16 GPUs, but then it will give them which sort of like metrics do really need to deploy. Is it also a good way to rephrase what you've shown?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So it's about picking the hardware configuration that will meet your business requirements is really what it's for. So
And this means that say that the company did not run as well the numbers themselves, didn't run the numbers, they can always delegate to somebody to run them to run those benchmarks for them, enter that in the catalog, or go to one of the sort of like leaderboards and so on, where you may have this performance data, take this data, put it in the catalog, and therefore use it to best advise the consumer of your model.
Yeah. I mean, anywhere that you can source that benchmark data is fine. There's a format you got to hit to get it loaded in the catalog, but if you can reformat it, you can get it in there and get some hopefully good recommendations out of it. So.
Sounds awesome. Thank you so much, Paul.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Are there any? I don't think that there were any questions for Paul. So in case, please feel free to raise hand. Just one note for the Kubeflow release. So I was earlier in the release meeting also with John and Addison. I think that the news are relevant to hear from this group are mainly two. First is that the Kubeflow manifest is looking to switch to a calendar version based cadence, release scheme. So that will be more aligned to what the manifest actually is doing, like it's cutting at a release date, sort of like the best available release for every working node. So this is going to be discussed. It doesn't have any implication for us, only I would say it just give us compatibility to what we've been doing already, also with the previous releasing scheme, which is to say we release every 3 weeks and they just onboard the latest. So we just needed to keep that for every release, like it is documented. We just needed to provide them the manifest, and so that they can onboard it progressively. So if I go here to release, then at the bottom, this is shown how we typically do it. The next thing that I've also picked up is that they are still sort of like looking for enabling the model registry, and I would say now model catalog as well by default. So we had this issue logged that is a part of as well for the roadmap that we're trying to do. So I think that here is like if something somebody from as well UI wants to revise the instructions, I think this will be meaningful, so that we can sort of like, if it is not the 1.11, but somebody some next release, then we can enable by default. So this is something that anybody who wants to contribute to Kubeflow on behalf of the Model Registry can do. I just thought of highlighting one rather than sort of like reaching for information. But you can check all the remaining open items here. So here we have a few of them. With that said, I think that Mike, you're next in the agenda.
Thank you. Yeah, just before my demo, just a quick response to what you're saying. I think that, yeah, we should participate in the UI side on that, but I think that enabling model registry and model catalog by default should maybe be separate in 2 steps. I don't know. At least before we enable model catalog by default, that we need to look at cleaning some things up. There was some bugs specific to the material UI theme and things like that. And then also the model catalog settings page that I'm about to demo is not yet complete. So at least that is probably going to be a separate stage to release by default in the UI. But yeah, I can look at that issue and we can look into that. Okay. All right. So I just want to give a quick demo of the work in progress for the model catalog settings page. Sorry, Matteo, were you going to respond to that?
No.
Okay. On my screen here. So we are in progress working on this page for model catalog settings that I've mentioned before. I'm going to demo it just from mock data, so not all the operations are available here. Some of the stuff is still in development. But this is a way for the user interface to provide access to the current way of configuring the model catalog sources, which is by editing a config map manually. So this kind of provides you a nicer interface for that. You get your list of sources here that are the records in that config map, and some information about if it's Hugging Face source, you can see the organization that it's getting models from Hugging Face. You can see whether it is filtered or unfiltered, which I'll explain in a moment. You can see the type. We have YAML file sources and Hugging Face sources, and then you can toggle enable or disable for each of the sources. And you can see a status here, which is mostly applies to the Hugging Face sources, where it will need to initialize them and fetch models from Hugging Face. And you can create and manage sources from here. So let me show a couple of those flows. If you add a source, you can name it. You can choose the type of Hugging Face or YAML. If it's a Hugging Face repo, and also disregard some of these details that need to be cleaned up. It's in flight here. We got some style issues, but you can choose Hugging Face or YAML. If you choose Hugging Face, you need to specify the organization and an access token. And then once you specify those, you'll be able to validate that connection, which this validate button also makes the same call as a preview button, which is all available down here as well, where you can preview the list of model names that will come back when you are adding the source. And that's a way for you to also preview this model visibility stuff that I'll get to. But then the other option for source type is a YAML file. And there's a special format that'll be documented for the YAML file. This is the same format that's in the default sources for you to paste in your model metadata to be in your catalog source, which is a more open-ended way of providing your own models. And then for both of these types, there's a model visibility section you can toggle open. And this is for governance, for allowing, disallowing. So if you, and one other note, the default sources we provide are going to be disabled by default, or the default sources that you can provide in a downstream distribution can be disabled by default before the user goes in here to specify which models should be included and excluded. So this is stuff that's already been demonstrated from an API side, I believe, but it's just exposing that allow and disallow list to the UI. So you can go in here, make sure that you are showing the users the models that you intend to. You enter these things in, you can click preview, and then you'll see the list there. I can show some static preview of that on another source, but you would add that information, and then you can choose whether to enable it right away or not when you add it. So that is the flow for adding one. And then if you have existing sources, you can manage them. So you can, and also this filtered and unfiltered is showing, it will show filtered if you have input in that allow or disallow box, and unfiltered otherwise, to indicate whether there's a limitation on the models you're showing from that source. If I manage an existing source, if I've already got some filters here, it will show them. There's some bug in our mock data. There should be the YAML source existing here. We're cleaning things up. And then let me see, I've got a Hugging Face type. If I manage that, same deal. We've got our credentials and org pre-filled. We're just editing this existing source to go modify the filters and whatnot. I believe if I preview, okay, where's our mock data for the preview? Live demoing. I think that we have some example data that might have just broke. Okay, well, once you're able to preview, we're still working on this, but you'll be able to click preview. It'll validate your credentials for Hugging Face, or just validate your allowed and disallowed for both types, and it'll show you, here's the list of model names that you'll get back if you create and enable this source. You can kind of see what you're doing as you edit those things. And so that is basically it for now. I hope in the near future to demo this end-to-end fully working without these quirks. This is what we're building.
No worries, but actually, thank you for sharing, Mike. So, are there any questions for Mike? Doesn't look like, but just to make sure. So, Mike, this is a way that I think that the value added here, I think, and please indeed sort of like guide me, is that today for model catalog, indeed this configuration, so what is shown in the model catalog is configured through a series of config maps, basically, or sort of like in general through a series of YAML. The value added that we have here is that the admin, first of all, doesn't have to necessarily sort of like just manually fiddle with the YAML and see the results over there, but they can use these interfaces so that I can actually delegate as well this power to some stakeholder that can configure these. These, in the case of Hugging Face, is pretty on the rails. So it's like they will be able to specify indeed the organizations, and the preview button, I think, is like it's a very great idea, because indeed they can say, hey, it's like if you're going to confirm this one, these are the models that sort of like will end up in the catalog. While instead, indeed, is like they always have the possibility to paste the YAML file if in case that they have it stored somewhere. So I think that the value added here is to provide the initial guidance to the administrator, or indeed delegate the power for the stakeholders when they want to define the Hugging Face. Does it sound like a good well way to think about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. This is exposing that preview functionality without them having to like curl the API directly, and the addition of the Hugging Face type being exposed to the users, and I think that goes hand in hand with that allow disallow, because there's going to be a lot of models coming from Hugging Face. It also just abstracts away the complexity of working with those config maps. We've got the default static config map and then the override config map, where you might have some information for both, for one source across both, because you're overriding some of the static stuff, and this abstracts that all away and makes it a little easier to parse. So I think, yeah, some convenience features all around.
Thank you so much, and thank you. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
All right, let me just reshare on the agenda, and always thank you, both of you, Paul and Mike, for live demos. Really appreciate it. Even with the quirks, I think it's totally fine. It demonstrates that it's actually a real live demo. So don't worry about it, and actually it makes it more authentic. We don't have any other agenda items, so before closing up, if anybody has any last minute item that they want to speak about, going once, yeah, DV maybe.
Yeah, I just like this model registry thing actually seems pretty interesting, like way more than I thought. Like also like the one that Mike presented, so before this there was no real interface to actually do this, or it was done manually, right?
Right. Before you had to configure your sources in a config map yourself. Yeah.
I think the one that you made, that makes it way more visible, and I think it was pretty cool. So yeah, I just wanted around is there any issue or anything maybe small, good first, or maybe a bit complex one that maybe I can look at or anything, or and maybe help anyone?
Yeah, I think that the best way would be to sort of check if we have any. I think that we had almost up to recently some small sort of a good first contributor issue on the repo. So now I don't remember just on top of my head is if we have any currently active. But my suggestion is that to go through the open issues is if you find anything that you think is most interesting, we can also follow up on Slack.
Sure, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, we probably
Thanks.
need to do a little better job with the good first issues. I think we had one or two at one point, so this is a good reminder for us to do that. But I will say, if you are playing around with the project, just trying to set it up and run into any friction running it, setting up a dev environment or anything, it's always great to report those things and look for things we can document better, or decrease the friction on.
Yeah, definitely. I will do set up on my system. Let you know if I found anything.
All right. So just a friendly reminder, tomorrow there is the Kubeflow community meeting. I think that they're going to discuss indeed, but not all about graduation, but general topics. So just a reminder, that is a general community meeting. And with that one, thank you all for attending today and for sharing. And we speak again for Model Registry Working Group in 2 weeks. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.